What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Too Pop to Handle. I'm your host, Andrew Nucatola, your pop culture best friend. And as always, I hope you guys are having a fabulous week. Now, believe it or not, it is Thanksgiving week. And just like you guys, I am wondering how the hell did we get here again? I feel like this year is going by faster than any year I have ever lived in my entire life. And I know what they say, as you get older, time flies by and, things go by in the blink of an eye. But this is at a speed in which I did not think was possible. I need Father Time to pump the brakes. I need us to chill the fuck out because things are just, I feel like I was just doing my 2024 pop culture recap episode yesterday. And now this week I started prepping the 2025 one. Things are just going at a speed in which I am not comfortable with. And we need to chill the fuck out, pump the brakes, and relax a little bit. But with all of that being said, with Thanksgiving being this week, that also means that it is Blackout Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve, whatever you want to call it. And though my Thanksgiving Eve days are behind me, thankfully for my safety and everybody else's, in my vicinity, but I did have my fair share of Thanksgiving Eve festivities in my day and a lot of bad choices that I have made. So I put together a list of some rules for anybody who is going out tonight on Thanksgiving Eve to follow so you don't regret your night tomorrow. Number one being, if you are going out with a group of people, stay with that group of people. Do not leave the group. Stay at the same bar, stay in the same area, because all it takes is one person to leave the group. Oh, I'm going to go meet my friend at the bar next door. I'll be right back. Oh, I'm going to go say hi to this person over there. No. Do not do it, because as soon as one person leaves, the entire night is going to be astray. Everything unravels and it just falls apart. Rule number 2, do not text your ex. I understand you were in your hometown. Maybe you're looking at the pool table in your dive bar where you guys had your first fight. Maybe you're in the dive bar where you guys had your first drunken kiss. I understand memories are flying back. However, Thanksgiving Eve is a night in which you were supposed to go and flex on these bitches in your hometown. You're supposed to be there reminding them that you are that bitch, that you have gotten so much hotter, so much cooler. You were so much better than all of these people in your hometown. And if you were spending your night texting your ex and just being sad about, ghosts of your relationships past, you cannot be the hottest bitch in your hometown bar when texting your ex. Do not do it. Do not text your ex. Leave your phone in your bag and have a good night with the girls, because again, rule number 1, you're staying with the girls. Now, rule number 3, do not go home with your ex. And I know what you're thinking, Andrew, you just told us rule number 2, we aren't texting our ex. I'm not stupid. I wasn't born yesterday. I know you guys are not listening to rule number 2 because I've been there. These rules are from my own personal experience. I understand it's going to happen, or even worse, you're going to run into them at said dive bar, whatever it may be. Do not go home with them, because there is nothing worse than waking up either the morning of Thanksgiving in their bed and their home and having to see their family in the morning, or vice versa. They have to see yours, or you're leaving their house at 3 a.m. and you're getting home. Then you have to get up at 7 a.m. and help, prep for Thanksgiving, whatever. It's not a good way to start Thanksgiving. It's not a good way to end Thanksgiving Eve. Do not go home with your ex. And if you follow rule number 2, you won't have to listen to rule number 3. But as somebody who has broken all of these rules, I understand that, temptations are there and it is hard. And Thanksgiving Eve it really does test all of us and really puts us through the ringer and really just tests our moral compass, really sees how low we're willing to go while we're in our hometown. So learn a lesson or two from me and have a successful Thanksgiving Eve. On a more serious note, I know that, this week can be rough for some people, or just the holidays in general. Maybe you're traveling home to a house that isn't fully accepting of you and you have to kind of hide who you are. Maybe you're choosing to protect your peace and not going home at all, and you're spending the holidays with yourself or with friends or, with chosen family, whatever it may be. If the holidays are rough for you because your family and your loved ones aren't fully supportive of who you are and who you love, whatever it may be, I'm sending you guys a lot of love. I know this year things have been very heightened, just with the weight of the world and the world being in complete shit. So I know the holidays can be a little bit harder this year, especially financially and things like that. So just sending a lot of love to anybody who might not be feeling the holiday spirit this year. I know it can be rough, and I don't always feel it. And, it doesn't really feel like we should be celebrating much this year, to be honest. But you got to keep your spirit bright. And if listening to this podcast brings you a little bit of joy this week, and that's the joy that it takes to get you through Thanksgiving dinner with your racist and homophobic uncle, I am so happy to be that outlet for you. But with that, I have yapped for long enough. Let's get into the show because we have a lot to chat about this week. And you guys know the drill. We always kick things off with our Drew releases, our new music releases from last week, and our new releases coming up this week. And now last week, I left you guys in a little bit of a cliffhanger. We didn't really know what was going on with Kesha. She was teasing something was coming. She put the $sign back in her name. She launched this MySpace style Kesha party website. There was a lot happening, but we didn't have any answers. answers. And now we have answers. And not only is $sign back, we are just so back as a society. Kesha is re-releasing Animal and Cannibal. She has re-released it for the 15-year anniversary with 4 bonus tracks that have never been released before. Now, I was deep in the Kesha internet lore back in the day. Like, I was listening to the unreleased, to the SoundCloud, to everything. So these songs aren't fully unfamiliar to me because these are like unreleased demos from back in the day, but they have never been on streaming. I don't know if we ever had like the final mastered versions. Like, I remember listening to specifically Butterscotch and Shots on the Hood of My Car and being like, these are not the best quality, but like it was an unreleased Kesha song, so we were just vibing with them. I don't know if VIP and FM He's a DJ were out, but these 4 songs are now officially released on streaming along with some other DJ remixes and things like that. And it's so exciting to see Kesha celebrating 2 albums that really were kind of taken from her through all the dark stuff that happened with her and Dr. Luke, and the fact that she's a free woman now and she is able to release her music and kind of go on this journey rediscovering herself as an artist. If you guys remember when I saw her over the summer on tour, I was saying the whole concert, felt like a celebration. Like, I felt like we were celebrating the fact that Kesha is a free woman and is able to, re-record these songs and own some of her masters and things like that. And it was just such like a really cool feeling. And watching Kesha just like take this victory lap as she was up there performing. So it's just really cool now to get these songs and to see that, she is able to celebrate this era of her life that was probably kind of dark and, not really the best memories tied to it, but she is kind of in this new era of her life and is being able to celebrate these, these moments and these songs, which feels really cool to see as a fan and as just like somebody who has followed her story for so long. So very excited to see that Kesha is celebrating these albums where in the past, I feel like she wouldn't be so willingly to celebrate these songs. We also had a surprise release from Christina Aguilera. She dropped a cover of My Favorite Things, which we all know and love from The Sound of Music. She's doing a new Christmas special, and the song came out today. It is just fabulous. I mean, Christina Aguilera can sing like no other, and I just feel like her voice on a Christmas song, it's just like, it melts, It is just like she has the perfect sound to her voice to do a Christmas album, and we're getting a whole Christmas special, she said, so I'm very excited to see what else is in store for this. I'm assuming it's going to be like a televised thing or streaming or maybe on YouTube. I know she just did like the 25-year anniversary of her album this year with Spotify, which I loved. That was incredibly done. So I'm really excited to see what she has in store for this. But this is a great way to kind of, kick off the holiday season. I feel like I said just before, like the holidays are a little rough this year. It's not as merry and bright as things usually are. So I will hold on to Christina Aguilera giving us this holiday spirit if I need to. And those are all the releases that I had last week. I don't have anything on my radar this week. It is Black Friday and like Thanksgiving, so I don't think anybody is releasing. I feel like it's usually a quieter week for music, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have anything to chat about next week. But you know what? There have been so many weeks with so much music. I will take a week with nothing to talk about. That is a-okay, because there's always something else to chat about. And that wraps up our Drew releases. Very quick this week, but it is what it is. Some weeks there's a lot, some weeks there's nothing, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And before we get into the moments from the week that were just too pop to handle, I always like to take this time to remind you guys that if any point during this episode you were loving what you were hearing, go ahead and leave me a 5-star rating. Do not be shy. It is the best way to help support the show. It's the best way to help get me in other people's algorithms. And as much as I hate to cave to an algorithm, it is the world in which we live today. And, it takes 2 seconds to leave a rating, leave a review, and it is seriously, like I said, the best way to help support the show. It would mean the world to me, but I do need to give you a show to find out if you are loving what you were hearing. So let's get on with the show and talk about some moments from the week that were just too pop to handle. Kicking things off, kind of piggybacking off of last week's episode, my Wicked for Good review. Wicked for Good is officially the biggest opening debut for a Broadway adaptation in history. It opened with $226 million at the global box office. For reference, Wicked Part 1 opened with $164.2 million, so that is quite the jump between Part 1 and Part 2. This was, expected. There was so much hype around Part 2 because I feel like Wicked Part 1 really sold it for everybody and really just made everybody so exciting. And with the time in between, with all the press and all the merch and everything like that, it was kind of obvious it was going to outsell the first one. But this is a really big jump to go from $164 million to $226 million. That is huge. Last year, Wicked Part 1 did also break the record for the biggest opening debut for a Broadway adaptation in history. But like I said, said, this part 2 did beat that out. Other movies on that list that follow behind are Into the Woods 2014 with 31.1 million, Mamma Mia 2008 with 27.8 million, Hairspray 2007 with 27.5 million, and Les Mis 2012 with 27.3 million. So even looking at the list of the biggest opening debuts for Broadway adaptations, Wicked Part 1 and Part 2 beat them by a landslide. I mean, these numbers are triple, quadruple, 5 times. I'm not good at math, but I mean, 31.1 million to 164.2 million is a crazy jump. And then 31.1 million to 226 million is an even crazier jump. So clearly the people are getting out to the theaters and seeing this movie, despite all of the negative reviews that it is getting, which I'm honestly really surprised by. I knew that they were going to, I knew there was going to be negative feedback on the movie because even historically, Act 2 of Wicked is the least, the less favorable part of the show. It's just kind of, people love the first act because the music's a little more lively and, it's a little more bubbly and upbeat and things like that. And part 2 is a little more twisted, a little more wicked, if you will. But that's kind of the point of this show. The first part is telling the story and giving you the backstory of these characters so they can bring you up to speed in what's happening in Act 2. So even with the musical, people tend to not like the second act as much as the first one. So I'm not surprised with people not loving the movie as much as I love the first one. I personally absolutely loved it. I don't know if I could say which one I like better because, again, they are a continuation of each other. It is 2 separate movies, but it's not like I go into a Broadway show and I'm like, oh, I liked Act 1 better than Act 2. No, it's like I either liked the show or I didn't. So if you treat them as one really long movie, it kind of all just kind of flows together. But of course, people are treating them as part 1 and a sequel because that's how they released it for the, it makes sense why they did it. I understand why they split them. But yeah, I'm very surprised at the way that people are reacting to this movie because I honestly thought it was great. I thought the acting was great. I thought the music was great. I thought everything was fantastic about it. There were certain things that I didn't love, but overall, I thought they did a really great job with this movie. And clearly, people also think the same because they are still going out to see it. I also saw that it had the biggest Monday night box office sale or something in years or something like that. I don't know. People are still going to see it. I'm seeing it again tomorrow night, which is tonight when you guys are listening to this. I'm so excited and I still love living in the world in which the Wicked movie is happening in real time. But very exciting to see that, the second movie is doing so well compared to the first one because the first one did so well. It was how can they top this? And rest be assured, they sure did top the first one. And on the topic of Wicked, our Glinda, Miss Ariana Grande, has been interviewed by no other than Nicole Kidman for Interview Magazine. And I mean, Nicole Kidman and Ariana Grande sitting down for an interview is just what dreams are made of. We've seen the two of them fangirl over each other so many times. The Palm Springs Film Festival, they had that moment at the Golden Globes. The two of them, they love each other so much. So seeing the two of them sit down for this interview was just so exciting. And Nicole was asking some hard-hitting questions. I think the biggest thing to take away from this was the fact that she was asking her if she would ever go back to Broadway and, if that's something that she would do in the future. She says it's so beautiful and so challenging. I feel like that's where I developed my stamina, but I would love to be on stage again. And I feel like thinking about where Ariana is right now, she's expressed the fact that touring isn't something that she wants to do long term, which we'll get into in just a second. And, she wants to be in this actress era and she really wants to kind of get back to that. And I mean, that is where she started her career. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see her on stage in some capacity in the next few years. I don't know if it's in the next 3 years, maybe a 5-year, 10-year plan. I do think she really wants to kind of flex this movie moment for herself. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see her maybe on the West End or maybe on an off-Broadway. I feel like she wants to do something kind of low-key. I don't know how low-key Ariana Grande can go, but we will have to wait and see. But I would love to see her return back to the stage. I feel like she said, that it's where she got her start and it is kind of what got her launched into the career that she has now. So I think Broadway is something that would make sense for Ariana in the future because we know touring is something that she doesn't want to do. And she did open up about this as well. She said, I feel really grateful and excited about it in a way that feels so different for me. I've been healing my relationship to music and touring over the past couple of years. I spent a lot of time redoing my system when it comes to making music. With Eternal Sunshine, that felt like a very different experience for me. I think the time away from it helped me reclaim certain pieces of it and put certain feelings that maybe belong to my relationship to fame or the things that come with being an artist in a box somewhere else and say, okay, I don't have to let go of this thing that I love. I can put those things over there and not lose sight height of my gifts. So I've just been taking baby steps towards healing my relationship to music and touring. I think my time with Glinda and the time acting really helped me build the strength to be able to do that, but I can't express how grateful I am. I think it just held some traumas for me before, and I feel those dissipating, and that is such an extraordinarily beautiful thing. And I mean, when you look at Ariana Grande's career as a pop star, she really was kind of like pedal to the metal nonstop. It was like an album, a tour, album, tour, 2 albums in a row, and then tour them, and like throw in a terrorist attack in the middle of it. Like, she really did have quite the experience when she was full-fledged pop star, you know, thinking about the times from, like, I would say like Dangerous Woman, even My Everything, up until Sweetener and Thank You Next and that whole era. Like, she really was nonstop with music because it was her outlet and it is what she was creating. And it was, you know, it is also the way that they kind of treat pop girls these days. It's kind of like you have to release nonstop and there's no breaks between albums, and you have to give us music and then go on tour and then get back in the studio, or you have to be in the studio while you're on tour. You know, it's this like crazy music machine, which we've talked about before. And it does kind of diminish what being an artist means. And that's why I always say it's so nice when artists take a break in between their albums and they let us breathe a little bit and they go live their lives. You know, that's why I think Eternal Sunshine is my favorite Ariana album, because she was really able to go like live her life and kind of get these experiences that she wanted to write about. Very similar to like Lorde and how she treats her music. You have to go live your life and experience things to be able to make art about it. And I also just think she had like a crazy few years between the Manchester attack, Mac and Miller passing away, Pete Davidson and that whole thing happening, her divorce. Like, she had a lot going on in her life that she really needed to kind of like let herself heal a little bit. And I think Eternal Sunshine really was that for her, as she says here. And I'm still shocked that she is touring next year. Like, I really did not think we would ever see the day where Ariana Grande was going back on tour, but I am so thankful that we are seeing it because, like she said on Amy Poehler's podcast, this is going to be her last hurrah, because she doesn't want to make touring a thing that she does regularly, which on one hand, I am obviously devastated about because I love Ariana and I could go see her live every single night if I had the opportunity. But I do understand where like touring isn't the healthiest thing for her. It's not the healthiest thing for a lot of artists. I mean, Miley Cyrus has a different reason as to why she's not touring every other week, and that's her own prerogative. But it's just like, you know, touring does take a big toll on people. And when you are one of the biggest pop stars in the world, there's so many other tolls that are being put on you. So I understand where she comes from with this. And it is nice to see that she's able to heal that side of her and doesn't have such a negative tie to those times in her life. Similar to like what I was saying with Kesha, you know, you're able to heal from it and kind of move on from the trauma that happened there. And like she said, it's an extraordinarily beautiful thing. But I thought this interview was great. The photos are stunning. She looks beautiful. She's full brunette in them. So that had to be, I think they did them back in like October. And she did say that like the brunette is now being rejected from her hair and she just keeps growing her hair out and the highlights just keep popping through. So we might be stuck with Glinda for a little bit longer, but she's fully brunette in this photo shoot. It was giving like old school pop girl Ariana, and the photos are gorgeous. The interview was gorgeous. You could just tell how much the two of them really respect each other. And they say in the interview, like they don't hang out outside of like events. You know, they were like, let's get dinner, let's hang out outside of the Golden Globes or a film festival, red carpet, things like that. But you could tell there's a really big love and admiration for each other within just the way that they spoke to each other. And I mean, I love living in a world where Ariana Grande and Nicole Kidman are obsessed with each other. Moving on to the next moment of the week, there was just too pop to handle some other pop girl news. Sabrina Carpenter has officially ended the Short and Sweet tour after 72 days, a 14-month tour. Speaking of pedaling to the metal and just going nonstop, she ended the tour over the weekend in LA, and she had some fun little nods to make sure that the shows were special. On the final show of the weekend, her bodysuit that she wears during the opening number said "The End," which was really cute. She arrested some big names: SZA, Maya Rudolph. Honestly, the most exciting to me is Miss Piggy. Her final Juno pose, she ran through the finish line to show that she was finally finishing on the tour, which, you know, had a little double entendre there. And we love to see Sabrina not shying away from everybody saying that she is a little too sexual. And she wore a lot of like man's best friend coded outfits. I know one of her outfits, one of the last nights, had the paw prints on it. So she's definitely, you know, saying goodbye to Short and Sweet. It kind of served its purpose. And considering she already dropped an album while she was still on this tour, she's clearly ready to go into that next era or just whatever is next for her, which who knows. But I mean, this is such a fun way to end this tour. This tour, I saw it last like November, maybe. No, I don't remember when I saw this tour, because feels like it was so long ago, because like I said, it's been going on for 14 months, but it was such a great tour and so much fun. And I mean, Sabrina's switch up between Emails I Can't Send into Short and Sweet was so wild. I saw her at Terminal 5 for the Emails I Can't Send tour, and then to see her at Barclays Center just a year later was such a crazy switch up. So just seeing her trajectory in her career kind of continuing to grow has been so exciting to watch, and it's been so cool to see her kind of continue to master her art and master her performing and kind of try new things and just find what works for her. You know, she's been in the game for so long. I really just feel like she's really found her sound and found her personality and isn't afraid to kind of shy away from who she really is. I mean, arresting Miss Piggy is just, that is incredible. Like, I'm not over that. And like, there was a lot of weight on who she was going to arrest during the final show. You know, it was this moment in the show in which everybody is waiting for. And it is interesting to me because it started as they would arrest a fan in the audience. And then at some point during the tour, I don't know if she just didn't want the fans fighting over who was going to get arrested, or somebody on her team was like, hey, you can make big viral moments by arresting a celebrity. Like, I don't know how the conversation came up, but whoever pitched the idea of arresting Miss Piggy at closing night of the Short and Sweet tour, I hope their pillow was always cold. I hope they never go to bed hungry. I hope they get everything that they want in the world, because having Miss Piggy be the final person arrested at Sabrina Carpenter's show is so incredible to me. And I am forever thankful for the visual of Sabrina Carpenter arresting Miss Piggy. It was incredible. I loved it. And so on brand for her. You know, it makes sense that Sabrina Carpenter put Miss Piggy in handcuffs at closing night of the Short and Sweet tour in LA. It just makes sense. You know, everything's lining up. Everything is coming up Sabrina. But like I said, it's kind of like begs the question of what is next for her. Of course, she is headlining Coachella next year. She's doing a bunch of South American Lollapaloozas and some other festivals. So she's not done touring fully. She has a break until March, which thank God, because she's been non-stop, I feel like. But I'm curious to see, like, what is next? Are we going to let Man's Best Friend kind of exist as this album that was in between two tours or two eras, whatever it is, and she's not going to give it a full tour? Is she getting back in the studio? She's also going to be starring and producing in Alice in Wonderland, movie. So like, who knows what she's going to next? Maybe she's following Ariana's footsteps and she's going to go into her acting gig and kind of hang up the pop star thing for a little bit. You know, the possibilities are endless. And I feel like in today's landscape, the pop girls really, they have the upper hand. You know, there was an era in which pop girls, they didn't really get to fully command what they were doing with their career. They were like products of the machine that was a record label, and they had to get back in the studio, like I said, and go tour and do this and whatever. So it is nice to see that they're kind of taking these moments to really flex the other muscles that they have. And similar to Ariana, Sabrina started not on Broadway, but on a kids network. Ariana was on Victorious. She was on Disney Channel. You know, it is kind of this interesting pipeline. And even thinking about like Sabrina opening for Ariana back on the Dangerous Woman tour, it's cool to now see the two of them kind of existing in these planes and following similar paths. You know, whether Sabrina ends up doing big movies. I mean, maybe I'll eat my words. I don't think the Alice in Wonderland movie that she's doing is going to be as big and as critically acclaimed as Wicked was for Ariana. But, you know, it is maybe this new path that she's going on. So we'll have to wait and see. But very exciting nonetheless. And the end of an era for sure. I feel like the Short and Sweet tour was so much fun between all the people she arrested. I mean, Anne Hathaway, Drew Barrymore. Like, there were so many fun surprise guests and things like that at this tour. And the Juno pose became such a huge moment. This was a really big pop culture moment. And I'm so thrilled that Sabrina, you know, had this like big, crazy tour moment that she can look back on and be like, wow, I really fucking did that. Like she really did the damn thing with the Short and Sweet tour, and we love to see it. Staying on the topic of tours ending, Billie Eilish wrapped up the Hit Me Hard and Soft tour over the weekend in San Francisco after 106 shows, which is fucking wild. And not only did she wrap up the tour in San Francisco, but she also surprised the audience with the trailer for the Hit Me Hard and Soft 3D movie that will be coming out next year. It'll be coming out on March 20th, 2026. And it will be co-produced by Billie and James Cameron, who, you know, he's produced some movies you might have heard of, the Titanic, Avatar, nothing crazy, just, you know, some little indie films. Insane that he is producing this 3D movie with Billie Eilish. Like, when I saw the announcement that she was releasing a movie, I was like, that's so cool. Billie's done a few documentaries here and there. I loved her Apple Music one that she did a few years ago. I want to say it was like 2020, 2021. It was when she was performing at Coachella. Really, really great documentary. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I'm slipping on the name. I'll look it up really quick. But this isn't Billie's first time doing like a concert tour or anything like that for a movie. So it's like, oh, cool. She's doing another concert tour movie. That's great. I love it. The Apple Music one is called The World's a Little Blurry. I loved it. It was Apple TV, not Apple Music. But if you have not seen that, it was great. I fucking loved it. So I was thrilled. I was like, oh my God, I love a documentary. I love a concert film like this. So this would be so cool. And then I saw that James Cameron was co-producing it. And I was like, this is going to be crazy. Like, he is top of the top. Like, he is as A-list as it gets when it comes to producer. So this is going to be really, really exciting. And the fact that she's doing like a 3D concert film, it just feels so nostalgic to like 2007, 2008. I mean, we've gotten concert films obviously in the last few years with Beyonce doing Renaissance, Taylor doing the Eras Tour, and there's been so many other concert films that we've gotten. But doing a 3D one really feels so nostalgic to like Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, Best of Both Worlds, Jonas Brothers 3D concert experience for the Burning Up tour, Katy Perry, California Dreams tour with, Part of Me was the movie, like Justin Bieber, Never Say Never, directed by John M. Chu, let us not forget. Like, it feels so cool to see a 3D concert film coming back, because I do feel like that is kind of a lost art. So very excited for this. I loved the Hit Me Hard and Soft tour. I went like 3-4 weeks ago when she was on Long Island. It was great. Billie always puts on a great show, and every time I see her, I'm just reminded why I love going to see her so much, because she really does she captivates her audience in a way that is really unique, because she's not an artist who she's not like talking to the crowd a lot. She's just kind of up there performing. But the way that people connect to Billie Eilish's music is really impressive, and something that I think is so special and not something that a lot of artists can do. Like, the way that these fans scream these songs are like, they feel every single word in their bones, and it is everybody in that room. It is really impressive seeing the way that Billie Eilish connects with her fans through her music. So really excited to see this movie come to the big screen. Again, if you have not watched her Apple TV, trust me, it is worth the watch. It's very long, but it is very good, and I'm sure this movie will be nothing short of incredible. I cannot wait for it. And moving on to the final moment of the week that was just too pop to handle before we get into our main topic of this week's show, which is Beyoncé, who you guys know I could talk about for hours. Tyler, the Creator, is Apple Music's Artist of the Year for 2025. And as the internet does, there are a lot of opinions being thrown around online. So I'm going to come out of the gate and just say it. Is Tyler, the Creator, my Artist of the Year this year? No. I think I would give it to a Lady Gaga, maybe a Sabrina Carpenter, a Bad Bunny. But that's not to say that Tyler, the Creator, didn't have an incredible year. And I think that's really the point of why I'm talking about this story. I feel like so many people on the internet, in the landscape in which the internet exists these days, there's so many corners of the internet. And I think about a lot, like when you look at the Billboard top 10 of every single week, some of those songs I have never heard in my life, but they are still the top 10 songs on the Billboard Hot 100, which means enough people are buying, streaming, listening to these songs that they are charting that high. And they are songs that have never come across my desk. And I'm sure that there are songs that I listen to that chart that they've never heard. You know, like, there is such reach in today's world, which is a double-edged sword. You know, like, sometimes it's great because so many people are listening to this viral hit, but then there's moments where like there's a song in the Hot 100 that half the world has never heard, and it's this really weird moment that we're living through in music. It's been for the last few years, really, with like the streaming age and TikTok and the way that TikTok has kind of taken over the music industry in that sense. Because back in the day, you know, when a song was number one in the world, it was everywhere. Everybody knew it. You couldn't escape it. It was like undeniably a song that everybody knew. It was a household name. Even the top 10 songs, like, you knew every single song on that chart. And that's not the case now. You know, now we live in a world where everybody has such different reach and different algorithms and different music they're listening to that, like, just because this song is number one in the world or on the Hot 100, it doesn't mean that everybody's listening to it. It's just a matter of like the volume in which people are consuming it. So it's a really interesting, it's an interesting thing when you look at things like this, when you get an Artist of the Year, or when you get, you know, a Grammy nomination or things like that. And it's like, oh, I haven't even listened to that, or I haven't even heard that. It's because like, not everybody has to listen to it now to make it a critically acclaimed or a highly loved or sought after album or song, if that makes sense. So I was seeing a lot of negative opinions on Tyler being this. And I do have my thoughts on Tyler, especially considering what's been coming out the last few weeks about him. There's been some crazy old photos and tweets about him. He's not an artist that I've ever really gotten into much. Like, he's not an artist that's really on my radar. I understand his hype and his excitement and why people love him. He is a very unique unique artist. And I think that is something that people really clung to him for, because he really did kind of stay in his own lane. And I mean, even this past weekend, Camp Flog Gnaw was over the weekend, and that is his festival, and he's been doing it for a year or so. The fact that he's able to put on an entire festival every single year, Doechii was headlining it. Like, he gets big named for this festival every single year. So there's no denying his reach or, you know, how his fans react to him or things like that. Like, both of his albums he put out this year, I think one was an album, one was an EP. They both charted at #1 on the Billboard 200. Like, they clearly are getting the listens, the streams, the buys. So just because he wasn't your artist of the year doesn't mean he wasn't the artist of the year to somebody. And I mean, at the end of the day, especially something where it's like Apple Music's artist of the year, this is all publicity and PR. And I'm not saying this assuming, but like, I'm sure there's some payout with it, you know, like there's definitely ways to do it. Even looking at the last few years, I mean, 2019, we had Billie Eilish, 2020, we had Lil Baby, 2021, The Weeknd, 2022, Bad Bunny, 2023 was Taylor Swift, 2024 is Billie Eilish. Taylor Swift didn't even have her music on Apple Music until a few years ago when she had to write a public letter on Apple Music. And now she's the artist of the year. It's like, there's clearly, you know, there's some shuffling of the cards and I'm sure there's some checks written and things like that. And, you know, it's not, I just think when awards like this come out, the internet becomes so divided and takes it so seriously when like there's a lot bigger problems in the world. We don't need to be freaking out over Apple Music's Artist of the Year, because to be quite honest, we're all going to forget about this in a few weeks. Like, this isn't an award that like hangs over someone. This isn't Album of the Year. This isn't anything crazy. But the response I was seeing to this was really wild. Just considering like Tyler has had a crazy year. Like I said, both albums going to #1. His tour is one of the highest grossing tours of all time that I could find. It has a projected 1 million tickets sold and over $100 million in gross earnings, according to a report from May 2025. Like, he's having a standout year. So let him have the award. Like I said, nobody's going to remember about the Apple Music Artist of the Year in 2025. I didn't even know that any of these artists won, honestly, the last few years until I did this research for this week's episode. Like, this isn't something that they stick with. But the things that I was seeing online, people had a lot of opinions, as they do. But I was like, God damn, let's relax a little bit. Take a deep breath and go touch some grass. It is not that serious. But moving on to the main topic of this week's show, and something that is very serious to me, Beyoncé was outside like we have not seen in months over the weekend, and the internet is losing their mind. So she was at Brandy and Monica's The Boy Is Mine tour a few weeks ago because Kelly Rowland is opening, and of course just to support Brandy and Monica. And then she went to the show at the Prudential Center over the weekend as well. So her second time seeing the show, not surprising. She wants to go out and support Kelly, of course, and this is such a huge show. I mean, Brandy and Monica going on tour together in 2025 is like such a huge moment for pop culture. So I'm not surprised that she went. And obviously with Kelly being there, of course you're going to show up and support her girl. Now, of course, anytime Beyonce steps out of the house, people are looking at her trying to figure out if she has an Easter egg on her, if what she's wearing is a clue to what is coming, because that has been the case in the past. You know, we've seen her kind of give us nods to the next era in her outfits over the last few years. So it is kind of something that it's a way that she's kind of given us a signal that something is coming. And I will say her outfit at the Boy Is Mine tour definitely was a switch up from her Cowboy Carter era looks. Like, they were very fringy, the cowboy hats and that whole vibe. This was like, she had a tie on, a corset, this giant cape. Like, it was definitely giving a transition into a more, not grunge, but more of like an edgy look, which obviously does go hand in hand with rock and roll. However, after that, I was like, all right, maybe it's just a coincidence, who knows, whatever. But then she sent the internet into a spiral because she showed up to the F1 Grand Prix in Las Vegas. And now there were a lot of reasons why the internet was spiraling over this. Number one, Beyonce was there. That is crazy. She doesn't go out for many things in public. So seeing Beyonce just like doing a public event like this and doing 2 public events like this in one weekend, we were being very well fed this weekend. So she was there to ride in the car with Lewis Hamilton. There's videos of her on the track getting in the car, and it's just so funny that like Beyonce wants to go in this car that drives up to 200 miles an hour. In the video, you can see Jay-Z being like, please don't go that fast, like please chill out. But like, I even think back to that video of Beyonce, I don't know, I forget where she was, but she's on that like slide in the rainforest and she's like zipping through the rainforest. It's got to be from like 2008, 2009, and she's like screaming on it. Like, she is a little daredevil. So like, we know that she loves a little excitement in her life. So honestly, when you really think about about it, I'm not that shocked that she was so willing to get into a car that goes up to 200 miles an hour. And like I said, of course, people are looking at any type of Easter egg in her outfits to see if she is teasing anything for Act 3. And I think the biggest thing that people really picked up on is the red in both of these outfits, both in the race car kind of jumpsuit that she wore and the outfit that she wore later on in the night was all the show. Later on in the night was all red. And if you think back to the Renaissance tour, she had that jumpsuit that she would wear during Virgo's Groove, I think it was, with the hands on it. She had 3 versions. It was silver, gold, and red. So everybody has kind of been on this theory that Act 3 is going to be red because Renaissance very much aligned with silver. For Cowboy Carter, she wore gold the night that she announced it. And then people have just been assuming that red is going to be the Act 3 color, which does make sense if you think rock and roll is like red, white, and black, very edgy, very grungy, very like punk rock kind of vibe. So I could see that theory being true. Also on her race car jumpsuit, it had words in Japanese on the front, where if you think back to Cowboy Carter, when she announced or released the album, she was in Japan and she did that random meet and greet where she met like 200 fans at that Japanese record store, which is still so wild to me, but there's a tie to Japan there. Again, this could all just be theory and this could all just be people reaching for things, but it definitely, thinking about the way that Beyonce has navigated these past 3 acts, there is definitely, it's not nothing, like there is definitely something to be said about the way that she is moving. And like Beyonce can go without being seen if she wants to be. Like she went to Kris Jenner's party, nobody saw that she was there. Like there was paparazzi outside and she was able to pull up to the house, get a spot where she was not seen at all until she was seen inside. Like she can go unnoticed if she wants to. So similar to Taylor Swift, like if she wants to be seen, it is intentional and there is a reason for it. But yeah, very interesting. She was also wearing all Ferrari things. The Ferrari logo is a black horse that is up on his hind legs. There's another theory that the horse for Act 3 on the cover will be black and will be standing on his hind legs, because if you look at like Renaissance and Cowboy Carter, the horse kind of starts to like lift up off the ground. So a lot of people think for Act 3 it's going to be a black horse that is lifted off the ground, which is literally the Ferrari logo. Now, whether or not that's true, who knows? That's obviously a fan theory, and I don't love bringing fan theories to the podcast because I don't really like to be that kind of like rumor mill kind of show, but like these things all definitely do make sense, and I just like talking about Beyonce, so I'm gonna do it anyway. And when you think back to Cowboy Carter, the first time when she announced it and everything was at a sporting event, this was a sporting event, so it does kind of follow suit. Who knows if this means anything or if she was just like enjoying a weekend out, because there is a world where she was just like, I want to go out and have fun and be seen and remind everybody that like I'm hot and I'm Beyonce and I like to have fun. And in that world, I also love that for her. Like that is also totally fine, but definitely some eyebrows to be raised. And then the other thing that people were really clinging to was Jay-Z's hoodie. He was wearing a hoodie with the number 9 on the back, and this will be Beyonce's 9th studio album. So that definitely isn't not something to look at, but I also am like, I don't know if Act 3 is coming as soon as we think. I definitely think that we're going to get it next year. I do think she's going to stick to this schedule where she releases every 2 years for the albums and tours in between, and I think she's going to keep that cycle going. So I do think we will get a new Beyonce album in 2026, but I don't think it's coming as soon as everybody thinks it is with these Easter eggs. Like I think these Easter eggs, if they were Easter eggs, I think they were just kind of like giving us a little like hint, hint, nudge, nudge at what's coming, but I don't think we're getting Act 3 anytime soon. I think it's definitely going to be next year. Also, like, I still think we're going to get a Cowboy Carter movie. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a surprise release for like a 1 weekend only, similar to Renaissance, by the end of the year. I could totally see her just being like, oh, by the way, here's the Cowboy Carter tour. Even if it was like an HBO release, I know that they were at the final shows filming. Like, I do think we will get the Cowboy Carter tour movie by the end of this year, which obviously means like Act 3 isn't coming before that movie comes out. And she just released a whole bunch of Cowboy Carter merch for the holidays. So like, I think the Cowboy Carter era it's got some more juice in it. She's still kind of wringing it out and enjoying it and kind of letting it reign as she is in this era. But I do think that this was kind of like a nod to what is coming, which leads me to my theories for Act 3. So, people are saying, insiders and rumor mills or whatever, which I hate to subscribe to, but a lot of people are saying it's coming in the first half of the year. So a lot of people think it's going to come in March. I honestly think we're going to get it in May because of the whole 29th theory. So Renaissance was released on July 29th. Cowboy Carter was released on March 29th. I feel like she's going to keep up this 29 thing because like it does seem a little coincidental that she releases both of these albums that are, you know, sister albums. They are all linked together. They are like, though they are 3 acts, they are a bigger project, you know, like a whole trilogy. So I do think that she will keep up with this 29th release date theory, which leads me to thinking that we're going to get it in May, because that is the first, I think the only Friday in 2026 that lands on a 29th, which, if she follows suit to Renaissance and Cowboy Carter, means we will be getting the lead single or singles in April, because Break My Soul came out in June and then the album came out in July. Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages came out in February, and then Cowboy Carter came out in March. So if she is sticking to this 29th theory, whatever it is, again, this is all theories and fan whatever, like there's none of this is confirmed or anything. This is just like me having fun with it. I'm not reporting anything, which again is not the way that I like to run this show. I like to usually bring the facts to the show, but with Beyonce, you know, you never really know. You gotta have a little fun with her, because you never know what she's cooking up. But I think we're going to get the lead singles in April and then the album in May. I say singles because I was thinking about it, and for Act 1, we got Break My Soul as a lead single, and then we got the album the month later. For Cowboy Carter, we got 2 lead singles, and it was Act 2. And it is a little weird. I still don't understand why she released 2 singles at once for Cowboy Carter, because knowing Beyonce and like her history, especially the way that she liked to surprise drops, like Renaissance was the first album in 10 years, I want to say, or more than 10 years, that we got a lead single for, or even knew that it was coming out. Like when you think back to Beyonce's discography, like of course we had like The Gift and everything like that, but like as far as like Beyonce studio albums, the self-titled album, surprise drop, obviously no lead single. Lemonade, HBO release, no lead single, like wasn't even available on streaming for like a few weeks. Like there is something to be said about Beyonce giving us lead singles for these trilogy albums. So I'm curious if she's going to give us 3 singles for Act 3 and, you know, give us a little bit of everything for the singles, because if you think of like Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages, they could not be more different in terms of like sonic. Like they are just such different songs, but they both fit the album so perfectly. So I think we're going to hear really experimental things on Act 3. And I think Act 3 is the one that is really like up in the air on what we're going to get sound wise. And I think we're going to be really surprised as to what she gives us, because traditional rock and roll and like the music that was created by Black people isn't the rock and roll that we know today. You know, it does have a different like soul and feel to it. So I do think we're going to get a mix of different things for Act 3. And then I do think she's going to give us 3 lead singles. This is all, again, just theory, but I do think she'll give us 3 lead singles that have 3 different like sounds to them, to give us an idea of like, hey, this is going to be really different, really experimental. Like I'm really just going for it with this final act. So like buckle up, get ready, and prepare for Act 3. All of that being said, why are we rushing Beyonce to release Act 3? Like we all can assume that Beyonce is going to go into hiding after this 3-act project. Like we're not going to see Beyonce for a long time. We have not seen Beyonce put out music like this, do public events like this, tour like this. Like we have not seen Beyonce tour this much so close to each other since 4 and Beyonce. Like we have not seen her do album cycles like this in years. So after these 3 albums come out, I think there's going to be a long hiatus in which we don't get Beyonce music or anything. So like, I'm willing to wait for Act 3. I'm willing to pump the brakes and, you know, let Beyonce take her time with Act 3, because I really think after Act 3 and that tour, she's going to go into a different endeavor. She's going to go into hiding. She's going to do whatever she wants, because she's been feeding us so much for the last few years that like she's giving us a lot of content all at once. So I feel like we can like hang on to it, and then like we can't miss her that much because we have so much to digest still. Now, I hope that's not the case. I hope she doesn't disappear for years and we don't see her for a while, but like it would make sense. You know, I think she's kind of gearing us up for the way that she's like treating these tours and these eras, and they're kind of like celebrations of her entire career and how they're all full circle for everything. Like I do think that this is an era of Beyonce where she is really giving us a lot all at once. And I do think we'll end up getting the visuals at the end of Act 3. And I think that's supposed to hold us over for a long time. And as excited as I am for Act 3, let's not rush her. Let's not rush Beyonce on this final act, because who knows what comes after Act 3. And if it means we get a Beyonce hiatus, I'll take a few months of waiting for Act 3 and, taking my time to get this new album because I'm not ready for Beyonce hiatus. I don't know about you guys, but like, I don't want to live in a world without Beyonce releasing music every 2 years, but I know it's coming. So let's pump the brakes on Act 3 and let's let Beyonce release Act 3 when she wants to. But those are my theories on what's going on with Beyonce, which is a little too suspicious that she was out and about so much this weekend. So I definitely think there is something there, but I don't want to rush into Act 3. I think Cowboy Carter still has some juice. Like I said, I think we still have a movie coming, whether it's in theaters, whether it's HBO, whether whoever releases it. I think we're getting the movie still. Maybe she'll give us a single like she don't know, but I do think Cowboy Carter has some juice in it that she needs to squeeze out a little bit more, and then Act 3 will commence next year. So let's hold our horses, literally, we got the horses, this whole entire trilogy album. Let's hold Renee, hold Chardonnay, and hold whatever Act 3 horses reigns, and let's relax a little bit and wait for Beyonce to give us Act 3 when she is ready, because as soon as she starts the Act 3 era means we are sooner to a potential Beyonce hiatus, which is a world that I don't want to live in. And moving on to the TV recap, I unfortunately have not watched any TV in the last week. I have been very busy. I had events. I was on a bus with 5 Seconds of Summer. I went to a Broadway show. I was here. I was there. I had a lot going on the last week, so I am behind on Selling the OC. I am behind on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Like, there's a lot of TV for me to catch up on. However, our favorite Mormon wives, as of today, have been fighting like no other. It has been fucking crazy with the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives cast. And I don't have all of it here because I just was like, there's too much to dive into. But essentially, Demi has been making a lot of comments and statements about everything going on with Marciano and, still trying to push all of her narratives, which again, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying it is true. I don't really know where I stand with Demi because even watching the way that the story keeps changing, every time she talked about these situations, there was a whole different side to it. And it's like, what is the truth? Like, you get caught in lies constantly on the show, in your real life. And like, there's just a lot of how did you come up with this kind of things, But nonetheless, she left a comment on Marciano's post saying, "Was your daddy this big of a pussy too? I'm sure he's looking down so disappointed and what an embarrassment you've turned out to be." Which, if you didn't know, Marciano's dad has passed away. And I just think that is really the lowest of lows you can go. Like, similar to what happened on Selling Sunset this season with Nicole breaking up Chrishell's dead parents. Like, when you know somebody's parents have passed or anybody's loved one has passed, like, using them as a jab or using them like against them is really one of the lowest of lows that you can do as somebody who is in the dead mom club. Like, no, it, like if somebody came to me and like used my mom being dead as an insult, I genuinely think that I would hit them with a car. Like, I don't have a car, but I would find a car, get behind the wheel and run them over because like, how fucking dare you stoop that low? That is genuinely bottom of the barrel insult. And for her to post that publicly and like not feel shame from that is really telling of her character. And she's been saying things about Jessi because, of course, Demi and Jessi, they have been like, the two bumping heads the most because they were best friends. And then they had this big falling out. And Jessi got so messy today. And when I watched this story, nothing could have prepared me for what Jessi was about to say. My boyfriend showed it to me. We were sitting on the couch. He was like, "I need you to stop working for a second and watch this Instagram story because you are going to freak the fuck out." And he literally was like, "Put it in your outline for tonight's episode. Like, you need to talk about this on the show." So thank you, Thomas, for always, fueling the podcast and keeping us up to date on things that I might have missed otherwise. But she was talking about how Demi's story keeps changing and everything's happening or whatever. And she gave us some clarity on the Fruity Pebble inside joke that was going on last season, I believe it was. If you remember, everybody was gifting Demi all of those Fruity Pebbles and it was like this big ongoing joke and she was getting really upset and she was like, "Why would you guys bring this up? Whatever." And no one really knew what it was. And it was a really weird thing to like gift somebody Fruity Pebbles as a joke to something that she does sexually with her partner is like, what does Fruity Pebbles have to do with what they do in the bedroom? Well, today, Jessi decided to give us some insight into what that means. And she said that, and I quote, "Grandpa Brett likes to drink her piss like dirty soda and he gulps it down like water. And that's what Fruity Pebbles is." And I'm not one to yuck somebody's yum. People can be into whatever they want. If you have your kink and you're into this or into that, I don't give a fuck what you're doing. It does not affect me at all. But nothing could have prepared me for Fruity Pebbles being gifted to somebody, alluding to the fact that her husband is drinking her piss. And again, I'm not yucking anybody's yum. Do whatever you want in the bedroom. I could give two shits. We are a sex positive podcast. I just could not believe that A, Jessi aired this out on Instagram after all of this time, and B, that's what the Fruity Pebbles meant last season, because that was like a big thing for a segment of last season of Mormon Wives. Like Demi was really upset about people keep bringing this up and gifting it to her, and it was like this whole, what does this mean? Well, now we know. And I kind of wish I didn't know, but you know what? You can't erase your memory. And Jessi is just completely spilling everything about what is going on. So I'm sure more has happened since I started recording. I haven't checked my phone since I started. I do have a text from Ayler. Hi, Ayler. I know you're listening. And she said, "What is happening with Demi and Jessi?" So I don't know if she's talking about old things, but something is happening while I'm recording. So I will get up to date on that, and maybe we'll chat about it next week or on the newsletter or on TikTok, whatever. Maybe some crazy shit happening over in Utah with these Mormon wives. It turns out there's not so many secret lives of these Mormon wives because they're airing everybody's dirty laundry out on the internet. But like I said, I am behind on TV, so I will catch up and I will give you guys my thoughts next week on everything. But I do know that like Bronwyn and Todd had a very deep conversation. I know that John and Lisa had a big conversation, so definitely excited to catch up on it. I will find the time. I have some time off this week for the holiday, so we'll definitely catch up there and we will chat all about it next week. I am very excited to catch up. But with all of that being said, we have made it to my final segment of the episode, which is my yes and my mess. We end every single episode with a yes and a mess, a yes being something I am loving and a mess being something I am not loving. And we always kick things off on a high note. So kicking it off with my yes this week is the fact that Hilary Duff has re-recorded Wake Up and So Yesterday for her new studio album, Luck or Something, that is coming out on February 20th, 2026. I was already so excited for this album. I did a reaction video to Mature. I have been loving it. It is exactly what I need from Hilary Duff. I cannot wait for this album. But the fact that she has gone ahead and re-recorded both Wake Up and So Yesterday for this album is so important to me. Like the fact that she is fully leaning into these songs that we all know and love so well, and she is re-recording it, kind of reclaiming them. I don't believe she's had any issues with her like publishing or things like that. Like I do believe she owns her masters, or not owns it, but like there's no like bad blood there, kind of like a Taylor Swift Kesha situation. But I do think this is a very fun nod to her past and, giving these songs that she recorded when she was so young, giving them a new life and kind of this new lease and this new era of Hilary Duff. So very excited for this album, very excited for these re-records, and I just cannot wait to see what Hilary Duff is cooking up in the year 2026. I feel like it's going to be a big year for Hilary Duff. And switching gears over to my mess for the week, an executive from Campbell's has been caught in a hot mic moment, basically saying that the meat in their soup is made in a 3D printer. So he was caught saying, "We have shit for fucking poor people. Who buys our shit? I don't buy Campbell's products barely anymore. It's not healthy now that I know what the fuck's in it. Bioengineered meat. I don't want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer." Which is, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of layers to this. First and foremost, saying that they have shit for fucking poor people and implying that people who aren't rich or wealthy don't deserve to eat quality food is just so typical white rich man thing to say. Like, fucking get a grip, it's just so tone deaf to say. And I'm sure this man is making millions upon millions of dollars and has never, done anything to help Campbell's as a brand. He just got this title. You know how it goes. They don't ever do anything. They get these titles, they do no work, and they get paid millions of dollars. But then on the other hand, him raising this question, whether or not the meat inside Campbell's soup is coming from a 3D printer, it's like, what kind of health standards are we holding our food to that is allowing the FDA and everybody to allow our food to be 3D printed? Because Campbell's has been around for decades, if not centuries, and they are I'm looking at a Campbell's soup can on my wall right now. Granted, it's tomato soup, so there's nothing 3D printed about that, and it is an Andy Warhol print, but you know what I'm saying. Campbell's has been around for quite some time. So to think that like something has shifted in the Campbell's production, I'm sure there's going to be a big study done, an investigation on what is going into their soups. And it also just like makes me raise an eyebrow of like, who are the executives in these big brands? You know, like who are the people calling the shots in these giant food brands, things like that? Because like clearly this man does not give two shits about Campbell's as a brand, as a label. Like they are a legacy brand in just culture. You know, Campbell's is, everybody has Campbell's soup in their cabinet and grew up eating it, and it was the quick dinner to have at home. You know, like Campbell's is such a staple in just life, I feel like. And like hearing an executive from a brand that is so like painted as like America's go-to soup brand and, you know, things like that. I mean, I would raise Progresso as the superior soup brand, but like that's not what we're talking about right now. You know, Campbell's is a staple in American households. So like hearing an executive talking so negatively about the brand, I'm like, what else is going on at these big food companies that we don't know about, that like these executives and these people are hiding from us? And unfortunately, under the Trump administration, like the FDA is going to get away with a lot worse than 3D printed chicken. So I am now like raising my brow at every food label. And I'm like, what the fuck are we actually putting into our bodies? What are we eating? Because it's fucking crazy out there. Like shit is wild. And as soon as I saw this quote, I was like, this is one of the messiest messages I've had all year. This is crazy. And like, I am very tapped in to see what happened and like to see if I'm sure he'll get fired. I mean, the guy who cheated on his wife at Coldplay got fired. They both did. Like, I can't imagine him saying something like this about the brand and like A, calling poor people lesser in his statement, and B, completely airing out the brand or like saying they are doing things that are unethical in their process. Like, I can't imagine this goes over well in their weekly teams meeting, but I mean, like, I don't know. If anybody listening works at Campbell's, let me know what's going on. Let me know the inside scoop. I won't tell anybody. I won't share, but I'm very curious to see how Campbell's bounces back from this. But we will have to wait and see. And for the time being, maybe stay away from Campbell's chicken soup. I'm sure the veggies are fine. Maybe just grab Progresso, or maybe make your own soup. You know, you can find lots of recipes on TikTok. You can really just avoid this problem totally and make your own soup and not have to worry about 3D printed things going into our cans of soup. But with all of that being said, we have made it to the end of this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Too Pop to Handle. If you guys liked what you heard and you're listening to us as a podcast, please go ahead and leave me a 5-star rating. It would seriously mean the world to me. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe, drop a comment, hit the like button. You know what to do. All the things but dislike. And if you would like some extra moments of the week that were just too pop to handle in between podcast episodes, head over to my Substack at toopoptohandle.substack.com. I will have it linked down below, and subscribe to my weekly newsletter Popping In, where I share extra moments of the week that were just too pop to handle in between podcast episodes. And if all of that is not enough, you can always follow us on social media at Too Pop to Handle, or on my personal at Andrew Nicole across all platforms. And with all of that being said, I will catch you guys next week. Oh, actually, next week's episode might be delayed. I'm not sure yet. I might have a work thing on Tuesday night, so I might record on Monday. I might record on Wednesday. Maybe I'll skip totally. Maybe I won't go to the work thing at all. I'm not sure, but keep tuned on my socials. I will have everything updated there and let you guys. But yes, I will talk to you guys next week, whether it is on an episode, an Instagram story, the newsletter, a TikTok. There is always somewhere to find me on the internet because I don't shut the fuck up. And with that, I will catch you guys next week. Bye.